So, hello then. Welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spy Knight, and in these podcasts, I love talking all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm continuing on with my Shrek film reviews as I review Shrek The Third. So, let's get into it, shall we? Shrek The Third. It was released in 2007 and is, of course, the third installment of the Shrek franchise. And you have many of the same voice actors returning, like Mike Myers returning to voice Shrek, of course, and Tony Banderas returning to voice Puss in Boots. Still genius voice casting. So you get many of the same voice actors returning, and you get some new additions to the voice cast as well, such as Justin Timberlake as Artie, aka Arthur, and Eric Idle as Merlin. And I remember from a young age really loving this film. You know, it was this film alongside Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit and the Simpsons movie that I used to watch continuously. I would watch those three animated movies over and over again. Shrek the Third, Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and the Simpsons movie. I would watch those films just obsessively so. I was so in love with those movies. You know, whenever I found the DVD for those films, I would stick the DVD on. Whenever I saw those films on TV, I would sit down in front of the television and watch the film, even if it was like halfway or 3/4 of the way through. I loved all three of those movies, and for me, Shrek the Third was just one of those comfort films I always went back to when I was at a much younger age than I'm at now. But I hadn't seen the film in full in about 10 to maybe even 15 years now, quite a long time. I've seen parts of the film over the past decade or so. I've seen quite a few parts of the movie, but I've never seen the film. Well, I have seen the film fully, obviously, because like I was saying before, I watched it obsessively when I was at a much younger age, but I haven't seen the film in full for quite a bit of time. So sitting down to rewatch it yesterday, I was feeling a bit weird. I was like, oh, this is the first time I've watched this film for quite a bit of time. I don't know what it's going to feel like. And also I was feeling weird because I found out in recent years that this was the most disliked Shrek film, even more disliked than the fourth Shrek film, Shrek Forever After, which I think is the worst of the Shrek franchise. Thus far, Shrek 5 is in production, and I have high hopes for it, but you never know. It's going to be the fifth Shrek film at the end of the day, so that might end up being the worst, but you get the point I'm making. You know, the fourth Shrek film was always my least favourite. And when I need to stop doing this because it does sometimes affect my opinion on a movie, but when I was doing some research on this film, I found out that a lot of the reviews were very negative regarding this movie. A lot of people saying that it was a Shrek movie where they ran out of ideas, it was unfunny, it was unnecessary, and it was a boring watch. And when I was doing all this research, I was like, oh my god, I never felt that when I was watching this at a younger age. And, you know, it's all subjective, but I can't believe how many people really dislike Shrek the Third, and I can't believe how many people actually hate Shrek the Third. I don't know how people could hate this movie. I was thinking that when I sat down to watch it yesterday, and I had this horrible feeling that when I sat down to rewatch it for the first time in a long while yesterday, I was going to hate it as well. You know, after seeing all these movies, after reviewing loads of movies on the channel, I got this horrible feeling that I would view this film differently, that I would go, oh no, now I see why so many people don't like it so much. But I still went in with high hopes. I still went in with an open mind, wanting to enjoy it so much, because this film, like I've already said, alongside Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit and the Simpsons movie, was one of those animated movies which was literally a part of my childhood. I wasn't a Disney kid. You know, I watched some Disney movies as a kid, but I wasn't obsessed with them. I was more obsessed with non-Disney animated movies, and this was one of them. And I was hoping to rekindle that same joy that I had watching this film at a young age when I watched it yesterday for the first time in a long time. And after watching the film for the first time in a long while yesterday, I am happy to say that I really enjoy this film. It's not a great film, and it doesn't hold a candle to the first two Shrek movies. for sure, and it's got a lot of big problems. I know it does. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a great movie. You know, there are so many things wrong with it, and at times it feels like it's losing its charm. The charm the first two Shrek movies had, this movie doesn't have that nearly as much, and it does feel like it's starting, like the franchise is starting to run out of ideas. But I would be lying if I didn't say in this review that I enjoyed this film. You know, I enjoyed it. I laughed along with that. I smiled along with it. And I had a good time watching this film. It's only about 90 minutes long, and really it flew by for me. You know, if it was any longer, maybe that would be one of my big issues. I think it's too long, but like I said, it just flew by for me, and I had a wonderful time watching it. Again, I'm not saying it's a great movie like Shrek 2 or the first Shrek, but I do think it's a good film, and I don't quite understand why so many people dislike it. You know, it's all subjective, like I've already said, but at the same time, I like this film for some quite legitimate reasons, I think. There are three big reasons that I like this movie so much, and reason number one is I enjoy hanging out with these characters. I think because of my fondness of watching these characters in the first two Shrek movies, that helps a lot when I'm watching them in this film, because even when the characters aren't given much to do, you know, I still just enjoy watching them. Like, I think the character of Shrek is the least likable version of him in this film, if you follow my thinking. I don't know how much I'm making sense today. I did not have a great sleep last night. I am feeling very tired right now. But I think the character Shrek is probably the least likable in this film, out of the first three Shrek movies, you know? But I still enjoy watching it, because I like the character Shrek, and I've liked him since I watched the first Shrek movie. You know, my fondness of that character has grown. Same with Donkey, same with Puss in Boots, same with Fiona, and even the side characters that we met in the second film, like, the supporting characters, should I say, like Prince Charming, who's one of those characters which, you know, he acts like a spoiled brat. I even enjoy watching him because he's voiced by Rupert Everett, and you can tell Rupert Everett is having the time of his life voicing this character, and I love that Prince Charming is the villain, or one of the villains, should I say, in Shrek 2, and that he's a main villain of the third Shrek movie. I love that, and I love watching Prince Charming in this film. I love seeing the Frog King back, voiced by John Cleese, even if it is only a small role that he has in this movie. I still enjoy watching him. I love seeing the dragon back. I found myself, when I was watching this movie, having this I found myself really enjoying just watching the dragon instead of the dragon and donkey babies. I still don't know who came up with that. You know, I'm not sure if it totally works, the whole dragon donkey baby thing, and it's not a big element of the film, but I like watching that as well. I like the whole idea of the dragon donkey babies, and I just enjoy watching these characters, including the new characters. I don't think Artie is a particularly lovable character, but I don't think he's a terrible character. He's just, yeah, he's funny. I don't mind watching him in the film. I kind of wish he was voiced by somebody who wasn't Justin Timberlake, because I'm not a big fan of Justin Timberlake as an artist or as an actor. I think he's good in The Social Network. That's about it. And I've seen him in quite a few films, and I don't think he's that great as a voice actor in this film. But I don't mind the character of Artie. I don't hate him. I just don't think he's that great. But yeah, I don't mind him. And I love the character of Merlin, though, voiced by Eric Idle. Yes, there are two Monty Pythons in this film. You know, John Cleese was a Monty Python. He voiced the Frog King, and he was in the second Shrek film as well. And then Eric Idle, he was a Monty Python, and he voices Merlin, and I didn't realise until the credits of this movie that it was Eric Idle voicing Merlin. I love the character Merlin. I find him hilariously funny. I wish he was in more of this film, and that leads me on to the second big reason I liked this film so much. I find it funny to watch, and at the end of the day, the Shrek films are comedies, and if a comedy is funny to watch, it can be a film's saving grace. You know, there can be hundreds of problems with a comedy, but if it's funny, it gets away with it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's one of the reasons I like Shrek the Third so much. Yes, it's got a lot of problems, and I'll get on to some of the big problems it has later on in this review, but it's funny. And sometimes, I don't know if it's meant to be intentionally funny, but I found myself laughing out loud, sometimes raucously, at this film. Like, in the dream sequences, I'm still not sure what they were going for with the dream sequences in this film, but when Shrek has that dream about what he's going to be like as a father, and he sees Donkey, and in the dream he wakes up and he sees Donkey and Puss in Boots with baby ogre heads, and then Donkey with a baby ogre head goes da da. Even now that makes me laugh. I don't know why, it just does. And then you get the gingerbread man, the gingerbread man dream sequence, which doesn't make any sense but still makes me laugh. And then when Shrek and Artie are having a heart-to-heart by the fire, Merlin plays some cheesy heart-to-heart music. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm going about. If you've seen the film, you probably think I'm going insane there. But anyway, get the point of making. There's quite a few sequences in this film where I'm laughing out loud, and I do think it's a funny film. I do find this film funny. I think that Shrek the Third has a lot of great comedy in there. Sure, there's some comedy in this film which falls flat, but I found myself laughing at this film a lot more than I expected to yesterday. I laughed at it quite a lot. So I think that does save a lot of this movie, because it is a comedy at the end of the day. All the Shrek films are comedies, and this is a funny comedy, in my opinion. So that's the second big reason that I enjoyed this film so much. And the third big reason that I enjoyed this film so much yesterday, and that the third big reason why I still enjoy this film, is because of the themes and messages in the film. I really love the theme of this film. The main message that you are your own worst enemy. I love that theme. And I think it's one of the reasons that Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit and the Simpsons movie also worked to me so much as a kid as well. I think it's one of the reasons that these three animated movies, Shrek the Third, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and the Simpsons movie, worked to me so much as a kid, because that's the main theme of all of those films when you really think about it. In Curse of the Were-Rabbit, Wallace is the were-rabbit. He's the main villain, and he becomes his own villain. In the Simpsons movie, Homer becomes his own villain. He almost destroys Springfield, and yet he saves the day at the end. And in Shrek the Third, Shrek almost becomes his own villain, kind of. But not only Shrek, but you get all these other characters, all these other villains from fairy tales who have become their own villains in their own stories. You know what I'm saying? They become the villains of their own stories, and at the end they realise they don't need to be. And I also love the theme in this film that it's never too late to make amends with the ones you love, with your family, essentially. I love that theme in the film, and there's still those themes of, happily ever after may not look like what you think it's going to look like, and that a happily ever after can be simple. I love the end of the film. I don't love this film overall, but I love the end of this film, where you see Shrek and Fiona back in Shrek's swamp, and they're looking after their 3 ogre babies, and then their found family there as well. The family that they found along the way in the first 2 Shrek movies, they're there too. Donkey's there, Puss in Boots is there, Fiona's mother's there, I think the big bad wolf and the 3 little pigs are there, and the 3 blind mice, if I remember correctly, Pinocchio, the gingerbread man. I love that. I love the end of the film, because it isn't this big magnificent ending where everybody's dancing around like the first 2 Shrek movies. And by the way, that's not a knock on the end to the first 2 Shrek movies. I love the big dance musical sequences at the end of the first 2 Shrek films, but I like how this film just ends in a sweet fashion. Shrek and Fiona have found their happiness in Shrek's swamp, living a simple life. They don't need to live as royalty. And I like that, because it's a fairy tale ending, but not in the way you may think. It's not in the way that fairy tales usually end. Usually fairy tales end with the king and the queen, and they're happy and they're riding off into the sunset, and they're now in charge of this kingdom. As in the case of Shrek 3, they're not in charge of a kingdom, and they're living the life that they want to, with 3 ogre babies and Shrek has accepted himself as a father. I love the themes and messages in this film. One of the reasons that this film still really works for me. So yeah, those are the three big reasons this film still works for me so much. Reason number one, well, not so much, but the reason it works for me still, reason number one, I enjoy hanging out with his characters. Reason number two, this film is still funny in my opinion. There's a lot of great comedy which makes me laugh, and that saves a lot of the film for me. And reason number three, I love the themes and messages of the film. The themes and messages that you are your own villain. So those are the main three big reasons that I enjoy this film still. However, I'd be lying if I said that nostalgia wasn't at play there as well when I was watching this film yesterday for the first time in quite a bit of time and still enjoying it. I'd be lying if I said, that it wasn't a nostalgic... I didn't feel nostalgia when I was watching this film yesterday, because I did. And I do think that is another reason I enjoy this film so much, because I do have this nostalgia for it. Yesterday I was watching, I was like, oh my god, I remember this moment, I remember loving this moment, I remember quoting this moment so much as a kid. I remember this moment playing over and over in my head as a kid when I was having these boring moments. And watching it yesterday, I think some of my inner child was reawakened, I couldn't believe how many memories are coming back from my childhood of me watching this film, and that just all made me smile. So yeah, I do think nostalgia was at play when I was watching this film yesterday, and I do think that is probably definitely one of the reasons I still enjoy this movie. But I don't necessarily think nostalgia is a bad thing, and I do think it helped that I watched this film an innumerable amount of times when I was a kid. Like, I would watch this film over and over again, and part of me, when I watched it yesterday, those feelings I had when I watched this film over and over again, about 1,000,000 times when I was a kid, they came back to me yesterday. Those same feelings I had. Yeah, and I did feel like a kid again a bit when I was watching this yesterday, which is never a bad feeling, especially from someone like me. You can tell from the stuff behind me that I am, in a way, a big kid. And when I feel like a kid again, when a film brings out an inner child in me, I can't help but enjoy that. I'm just being honest. The film isn't without its problems, though. I am going to be completely honest. There are a lot of big problems with this film. I don't think the high school section of this film works at all. The bit where they go to the medieval high school, I think that part is almost unwatchable, if I'm being completely honest. It's one part that whenever I rewatch this film, I want to skip because I just don't think it works. And I think you can tell that the film is running out with ideas. You can tell that the Shrek franchise by this point is starting to run out of ideas, because Prince Charming is back as a villain. He wants to reclaim the kingdom of Far, Far Away. It is a bit like, you couldn't think of anything else, you couldn't think of anything else to come up with, maybe? And I do think it starts to lose its charm, particularly in Shrek's storyline, because it did feel like the writers were sat down to write this movie and like, right, we need to think of something for Shrek to do in this film. We need to think of a reason he has to go on another journey, because he's been on a journey in the previous two Shrek movies, so why does he do it again? And I don't think they quite got the story right with this film. I don't think it's a bad story. I like the story because I like what it's all about. I like that Shrek doesn't want to become royalty, because so many times in these fairy tale stories, the whole point is that the man or the woman who is, living as a peasant of some sort, for lack of a better phrase, they want to become royalty because they think it's going to have a better life. And I like that at the start of this movie, you see that Shrek and Fiona are royalty, but Shrek doesn't enjoy his life. And I like the story that he actually wants to get somebody else to do all the royal jobs so that he can go and live the life that he likes. I just think that the story itself could have been a little bit better, and I think it also doesn't help that Artie isn't a particularly likable character. It's got a lot of plot holes in there. There are a lot of things wrong with it, and I could go on for quite a bit of time about the problems that this film has, but I've already been rambling on for quite a bit of time already, and so I'm going to actually round up this review now by just saying once more that I really enjoyed this film. I'm not saying it's a great film at all. I'm not saying that. Don't misread what I'm saying in this review, because I know it's been quite a positive review. No, I don't think this is a great movie. And I did notice some really big issues with the film yesterday, and I do think it is easily the worst of the first 3 Shrek movies. But I think it's better than the fourth Shrek film. You know, I'll talk about this more when I get around to reviewing the fourth Shrek film in the next couple of days to weeks on this channel. But one of my big problems with the fourth Shrek film is it's called Shrek Forever After. I keep forgetting the flipping name of it. But, yeah, one of my problems with Shrek Forever After is it just feels unnecessary. It doesn't move the plot forward. Whilst I like how Shrek the Third moves the story of Shrek forward. Not in leaps and bounds, but I do like how it moves the plot forward, even if the stakes aren't that high. You know, that's one of the other problems I have with this movie. The stakes aren't that high. You know at the end of the day that Prince Charming isn't going to succeed in his plan because, well, he hasn't really put that much thought into his plan, it doesn't really seem like. But at the same time, I enjoy this film because I enjoy hanging out with these characters. I find the film funny, and at the end of the day, Shrek the Third is a comedy, and the fact that I find it funny saves a lot of the film for me. And I find it nostalgic, and I love the messages and the themes in the film. You know, and I still love all the subversive fairy tale stuff. I still find it absolutely brilliant that the dragon is on the good side and basically becomes one of Fiona's princesses in this film. You know, I love all that stuff. I don't love the movie overall, but there was a lot that I love about it, and I'd be lying if I said I did not enjoy Shrek the Third. And I don't quite understand why so many people don't, because I think it's better than Shrek Forever After. And I think it's a lot funnier than a lot of comedies that have come out over the past decade as well. I still think this is a worthwhile addition to the Shrek franchise, and in my opinion, is the perfect end to the Shrek franchise. Unfortunately, they made another Shrek movie, which slightly tainted the end of the Shrek franchise for me, but fortunately, another Shrek film, a 5th Shrek film, is in the works, and I'm hoping that the 5th Shrek film saves it all, you know? Because the 4th film does not feel like a good end to me, whilst the 3rd film has always felt like the perfect end to the Shrek franchise for me. You know, maybe not the perfect end, but a satisfying end. That's what I should have said there. It's always felt like a satisfying end to me. And that's another reason that I enjoy Shrek the Third. Yep, I think it's a good movie, and I don't care what anybody else says. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Shrek the Third, I'm going to say that's I'm feeling generous today. I don't know if I'm feeling generous actually, but still, I'm going to give this film a 7 out of 10. Yes, like I said about a million times in this review, I don't think it's a great movie. I don't think it's nearly as good as Shrek 2, which I gave a 10 out of 10. I don't think it's nearly as good as Shrek 1, which I gave a 9 out of 10. But I still think it's a, like I said, worthwhile addition to this franchise, and that's why I gave it a 7 out of 10. I think there's a lot of merit with this film, and I think it's actually aged better than a lot of people perhaps think. I think if you haven't watched this film in quite a bit of time, check it out on Netflix. It's on Netflix right now, and I think you might have a good time with it. Maybe do some else as well. You know, maybe you could stick this one in the background, is what I'm saying. But I still think you would laugh along with it, and I don't think it's unwatchable. I saw somebody say online that this was an unwatchable Shrek film, and that it should be, you know, taken out of the Shrek franchise. It should be deleted out of the Shrek franchise. I'm like, I don't think so, personally, you know. I still think there is a lot to like about Shrek the Third, even if there is also a lot to dislike about it. But I'm going to focus on the positive in this video today, because, heck, for better or for worse, I have a lot of nostalgia for this film, and when I watched it yesterday, it brought back a lot of those feelings I had when I watched this film at a much younger age. And that was that made for a really wonderful viewing experience. So yeah, I still like Shrek the Third. And I've gone through the reasons why I still enjoy it in this review today. Those are the reasons that I still enjoy Shrek the Third. And so, all in all, as what he said, and I was going to say once more in this podcast today, Shrek the Third is a 7 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen Shrek the Third, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. And look forward to my review of Shrek Forever After coming soonish on this channel. I don't know when it's going to come, but hopefully within the next week or so. But until then guys, thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this video. And look forward to many more videos and many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. As what he said, thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast, and I will see you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye.